We're going to get started in 1 minute. The March 23rd, 2021 special meeting of the Monroe County Legislature will now come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll? Mr. Alcoffer.
Here.
Mr. Alcoffer is present. Mr. Ansello.
Here.
Mr. Ansello is present. Ms. Barnhart. Ms. Barnhart is present. Mr. Baroff.
Here.
Mr. Baroff is present. Mr. Baines.
Here.
Mr. Baines is present. Ms. Boyce.
Present.
Ms. Boyce is present. Mr. Brew.
Here.
Mr. Brew is present. President Carbone. Here. President Carbone is present. Mr. Colby.
Here.
Mr. Colby is present. Mr. Delahanty.
Here.
Mr. Delahanty is present. Mrs. DeFlorio.
Here.
Mrs. DeFlorio is present. Mr. Dondorfer. Mr. Dondorfer.
Here.
Mr. Dondorfer is present. Mr. Felder.
Here.
Mr. Felder is present. Mr. Flagler Mitchell.
Here.
Mr. Flagler Mitchell is present. Ms. Hassman.
Here.
Ms. Hassman is present. Mr. Hebert.
Here.
Mr. Hebert is present. Mr. Kiofat-Lassie. Mr. Kiofat-Lassie is present. Ms. Lamar.
Here.
Ms. Lamar is present. Mr. Lee.
Here.
Mr. Lee is present. Mr. Mafucci.
Here.
Mr. Mafucci is present. Mr. Marionetti.
Here.
Mr. Marionetti is present. Mr. Morelli.
Here.
Mr. Morelli is present. Ms. Roman.
Here.
Ms. Roman is present. Ms. Smith. Ms. Smith is excused. Ms. Taylor. Ms. Taylor is absent. Mr. Terp.
Here.
Mr. Terp is present. Mr. Wilcox.
Here.
Mr. Wilcox is present. Mr. Wilt.
Here.
Mr. Wilt is present. Mr. Udelson.
Here.
Mr. Udelson is present.
Willing to suspend the rules of the legislature for the purpose of prohibiting public in-person attendance in accordance with Executive Order 202.1, which is extended through March 28th by Executive Order 202.94. You have a motion before you, which is moved by Legislator Brew and seconded by Legislator DeFlorio. This is a non-debatable motion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Please join me in a moment of silent prayer. Please stand as Legislator Hasman will now lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Legislator Hasman?
Pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Called this special meeting of the Legislature pursuant to the authority vested in me as President of the Monroe County Legislature by Section C2-9C1 of the County Charter and Section 545-5 of the Rules of the Legislature of the County of Monroe. This meeting has been closed to the public, and all legislators are participating via teleconference in accordance with Executive Order 202.1 and 202.94. In keeping with the Legislature's tradition of openness, this meeting is being live-streamed on YouTube through the Legislature's official channel. Everyone participating via video or teleconference will please mute their devices except to obtain the floor and cast. If seeking to obtain the floor, please simply state your name and wait for me to call on you before proceeding with your question or statement. The clerk will read the full title of each resolution and referral to avoid any confusion as to which item is before the Legislature. All votes will be held via voice vote unless a roll call is requested. Tonight we'll consider a motion to convene a committee of the whole. In convening the committee of the whole, we will also discharge those items currently referred to committee and commit them to the committee of the whole. All legislators will be members of the committee of the whole and able to participate in debate and vote on items regardless of their respective committee assignments or which committees the referral was initially assigned. The committee of the whole will be governed by the same rules of the Legislature that govern committee meetings, and the votes taken are equivalent to those taken in committee. Meeting items passed by the committee of the whole will be considered for final approval or appropriate action at the next regularly scheduled meeting of the Legislature. We will now hold the public forum. Mr. Clerk.
There are no one's registered to address the Legislature, nor were any written comments submitted in advance of the meeting.
Perfect. We will now proceed with the consideration of resolutions and notices. Will the clerk read the next item on the agenda?
Item number 1, motion to discharge, convene, and commit, providing that files number 21-0081, 21-0085 through 21-0087, 21-0089 through 21-0116, and 21-0120 through 21-0122 be discharged from the agenda charter, public safety, recreation, education, transportation, human services, environment and public works, and ways and means committees, providing that the Legislature convene a committee of the whole, providing that files numbers 21-0081, 21-0085 through 21-0087, 21-0089 through 21-0116, and 21-0120 through 21-0122 be committed to the committee of the whole.
Wow, that was good, Jay. Moved by Legislator Bruce, seconded by Legislator DeFlorio. Is there any discussion?
Legislator Barrow.
Legislator Barrow, go ahead.
Thank you. I hope everyone's having a great evening today. It's been nice outside. I know we had to come inside for this, but I just want to acknowledge the fact the weather's turning for the better. So I think that's kind of an important thing to start off on the right foot with. I had a couple questions. I will go with the maker of the motion on this. And that is, I was reading through this referral, and I'm actually, I have to say, being member of the committee of the whole, I can actually comment on this. And normally, since it's agenda chart, I couldn't. So I'm really loving this. This is just, I'm sorry, I'm living it up, living the moment. It says, sorry.
I think the discussion's on the motion to discharge the items, convene the committee of the whole, then commit those to the committee of the whole.
Oh, I jumped the gun. But I was excited. I was excited.
Yeah. It was exciting while it lasted. Okay, is there any further discussion? No. Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. At this time, we'll recess the March 23rd, 2021 special meeting of the Monroe County Legislature and will convene the committee of the whole. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Alcoffer.
Here.
Mr. Alcoffer is present. Mr. Ansello.
Here.
Mr. Ansello is present. Ms. Barnhart.
Here.
Ms. Barnhart is present. Mr. Baroff.
Still here.
Mr. Baroff is present. Mr. Baines.
Here.
Mr. Baines is present. Ms. Boyce.
I like that, still here.
Ms. Boyce is present. Mr. Brew.
Here.
Mr. Brew is present. President Carbone. Here. President Carbone is present. Mr. Colby.
Here.
Mr. Colby is present. Mr. Delahanty.
Here.
Mr. Delahanty is present. Mr. DeFlorio.
Here.
Mr. DeFlorio is present. Mr. Dondorfer.
Here.
Mr. Dondorfer is present. Mr. Felder.
Here.
Mr. Felder is present. Mr. Flagler Mitchell.
Here.
Mr. Flagler Mitchell is present. Ms. Hassman.
Here.
Ms. Hassman is present. Mr. Hebert.
Here.
Mr. Hebert is present. Mr. Kiofelasi. Mr. Kiofelasi? I believe you're muted.
Legislator Kito Fetlasi, are you muted?
We can come back. Ms. Lamar?
Here.
Ms. Lamar is present. Mr. Lee?
Here.
Mr. Lee is present. Mr. Mafucci?
Here.
Mr. Mafucci is present. Mr. Marinetti?
Here.
Mr. Marinetti is present. Mr. Morelli?
Here.
Mr. Morelli is present. Ms. Roman?
Here.
Ms. Roman is present. Ms. Smith? Ms. Smith is excused. Ms. Taylor?
Here.
Ms. Taylor is present. Mr. Turp?
Here.
Mr. Turp is present. Mr. Wilcox?
Here.
Mr. Wilcox is present. Mr. Wilt?
Here.
Mr. Wilt is present. Mr. Udelson?
Here.
Mr. Udelson is present. Mr. Kiofelasi?
Here. Sorry, my computer froze.
That's all right. Mr. Kiofelasi is present.
Perfect. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. You have the minutes from the February 25th, 2021 meeting of the Committee of the Whole before you. They will stand approved unless the clerk is notified of any changes by the end of the day. We will now hold the public forum. Mr. Clerk.
No one's registered to address the legislature, nor were any written comments submitted.
We will now proceed with new business. Will the clerk read the next item on the agenda?
Item number 1, referral 21-0081, enact a local law entitled Business Closure Transparency Act to require a report of county forced business closures.
So moved. Legislator Brew?
Second.
Moved by Legislator Brew, seconded by Legislator Delahanty. Before discussion, I have a few remarks. I'd just like to say a few brief words as we introduce this important piece of legislation aimed at protecting our local small businesses. Government interference in private business should not and cannot be taken lightly. Business owners should not be forced to wait and wonder if and when they will be shut down again and wonder if they could ever weather another round of closures. There must be clarity, justification, and transparency, and that is what this local law seeks to ensure. This legislation is closely mirrored after Erie counties, which itself saw 3 county bars and restaurants ordered closed since bars and restaurants could resume dine-in services in June, according to the Buffalo News. Here in Monroe County, we do not have the benefit of the Buffalo News to research, record, and publish these numbers, and we have no idea if and how many closures the county has ordered. Nonetheless, it should not take the local media to provide government transparency. It should be a guiding element of all that we do as elected officials. This local law will ensure that we have a report of justification for any county-ordered business closure or curtailment. If this legislation is adopted, Monroe County residents will be guaranteed the clarity, transparency, and public oversight they need and deserve. Is there any discussion?
Legislator Mafucci?
Legislator Mafucci.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a quick question. In the referral, first paragraph, last sentence, from the spas and saloons to insurance companies to restaurants and bars, businesses have been forced to change or cease their operations. What cease their operations?
It should be ceased. That's a typographical error. Thank you for bringing that to our attention, Legislator Mafucci.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Legislator Barnhart.
Legislator Barnhart?
Thank you. Through the president to the administration, has the county shut down businesses during the pandemic?
Through you, Mr. President, no, the county has not closed any businesses as a result of regulations related to the pandemic.
Through the president, actually, I guess this question could be for the administration or President Dr. Carbone. If the county health department, well, I'm sorry, I'm assuming the county health department has shut down businesses, at least temporarily. For example, if they have a mice infestation or other massive violations of public health. I mean, those kinds of shutdowns occur, correct?
Yes, yeah, good question. Depending on the public health law that forced the closure, that would determine the county's authority to do it. But again, we would be well informed of why in the circumstances surrounding the closure. But that's an excellent question.
And President Dr. Carbone, do you think that for temporary closures for things like public health, we need a report? It seems to me that this referral is really about COVID-related restrictions. Am I wrong about that?
Well, mainly about COVID, but I think it pertains to any type of closure. And I think as far as transparency goes and to protect our businesses, I think this is a great piece of legislation so everybody can be aware of what's going on, including us, before it happens.
Thank you. I guess I would just make a statement before yielding the floor. I'm just concerned that when it comes to COVID-related restrictions, those have all come from the state. Certainly, I have been critical of some of those restrictions over the last year, particularly the orange zones and the yellow zones, and that really didn't work. It didn't accomplish the goal of reducing infections. But I just don't see this as a county issue. And certainly if the county health department is closing businesses because of health violations, we do read about those in the newspaper. And I agree that, because they have their restaurant inspections thing. And I agree that they should be made public. And just one final question to the administration. If you do close a business for health violations temporarily, is there a mechanism in which you publicize that already?
Through you, Mr. President, yes, absolutely, legislator. As you pointed out, these matters are frequently reported in the media. Obviously, I think it's our goal to publicize that. This is all public information, and this is information not only are we required to share, but we are absolutely more than willing to share.
Mr. McCann, you said frequently, but with this piece of legislation, it would be always, correct?
Well, it's frequently in the media. This legislation wouldn't require the media to pick it up, Mr. President. And also the other part is there are placards or some type of signage that are listed in businesses with that. So no, we regularly make that information.
It would require you to always inform the legislature what's going on, 100% of the time, correct?
I believe that's what the legislation does, but this is information that we do routinely provide now.
And
okay.
I just have one clarifying question. When you say routinely provide it through the president to the administration, what does that entail?
Well, we typically do a press release to notify that, as well as the placards, so that there's a public notice. But also, to my knowledge, we've not been requested to provide that information to the legislature. But obviously, we would be not only would we be happy to provide that, we would be required to provide that under the law already.
All right,
That's public information.
All right, thank you. I yield the floor.
Legislator Baines.
Legislator Baines.
To the maker of the motion, President Dr. Carbone, can you give us the current status of the Erie County legislation?
They've had 3 Monroe County closures, and they're trying, they've had 3 county closures, and they're trying to put this into law themselves.
To you, President Dr. Carbone, we've had none. And so one of my concerns is, and I wonder if you share it, that by making the information about a business having a problem, either with COVID compliance or with a vermin infestation, isn't making that information more public a form of shaming that could harm these businesses, Mr. President?
No, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that at all. I don't feel that way. Do you feel that this act of transparency for businesses is unfair? Is that what you're getting at?
No,
do you think it's unfair?
Well, obviously, I'm always concerned about fairness, Mr. President.
Well,
but,
no, so am I, but
I'll answer your question, though. My concern is that we could unfairly single out a business that has some inadvertent violation and has to be temporarily shut down. Now, insofar as we have had nobody shut down, it strikes me as a law chasing a problem that doesn't exist. And for that reason, I'm reluctant for government to overreach. You know,
I'll be very honest with you, Legislator Baines. I hope we never use this law, but if we have to, at least it's in the books, and we'll be able to protect our businesses as best as we can.
Legislator Boyce.
Legislator Boyce, you have the floor.
Yes, to the maker of the motion. This would not be restricted to the health department closing a business, would it?
Absolutely not, no.
So there's a case that did occur actually recently with regards to a bar and restaurant that was serving underage children. And also there was many fights. So that would come under this law, would it not, President Carbone?
Yes.
Thank you.
Legislator Mafucci.
Legislator Mafucci.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just really want to make a statement that.
I thought you found another typo. You were making me nervous.
No. Everything looks pretty good, based as I can tell.
Okay, thank you.
Again, for me, this strikes me again as being more regulation rather than less. And you would think in this day and age, we would want a little less regulation than more regulation. So that's kind of my statement. Haven't decided how I'm going to vote yet, but this does strike me as being adding more regulations to the books. Thank you.
Thank you, Legislator Mafucci. Any further discussion?
Legislator Barra.
Legislator Barra.
Since I jumped the gun earlier, I forgot to wait till everyone was done this time. But thank you for recognizing, Mr. President. I do appreciate that. I have a question / clarification. It's my understanding that the Erie County Legislature has actually referred this to committee about 3 or 4 months ago, and it's not done anything with it since. Do you know if that's true or not?
Yeah, they haven't set a public hearing yet.
Well, no, they haven't done anything. It's referred to committee. They've done nothing for 3 or 4 months now. So including setting a public hearing or discussing it, doing anything with it.
Okay, so what's your point?
I was just saying if you realize that this legislation is in Buffalo anyhow, has been condemned to the depths of committees. It will probably never see the light of day again. But we won't know for sure because they always bring it back, just like when we used to refer things to the administration. Theoretically, it could always come back, but everyone knew it wasn't going to. But I did have an additional question. We did talk about, and Legislator Boyce, thank you for bringing it up, in terms of bars and restaurants being closed for liquor law violations. That does indeed occur. And in fact, they are shut down by order, and these are also publicized by order. And as a former legislator used to tell me all the time, whenever I had suggestions, he would look at me very sternly and say, but that's redundant. We already do it, and therefore we should not pass a redundant law. This, sir, is redundant. The only thing that it does differently than any other process we have in place is to ensure that each and every legislator gets a copy of this within 10 hours or the next business day if anyone has a vermin infestation or has a liquor law violation. And also, it's not in the description, but it's in the local law itself, that the business will be informed by certified mail with return receipt requested. I don't think there's going to be any of that with COVID-related situations, because that's not what we have the power to do. But is it the intent, an additional intent perhaps, that we provide additional guarantees that businesses know just who has been breaking the rules or not? Is that the intent with the certified mailing? That's
No, I
section
think the
3.
intent is to be more transparent, to let these businesses know why they're getting closed, to have a formal report of who wants the business closed, what jurisdiction, what authority, and to keep pretty much, again, transparency, transparency, transparency.
Thank you. Through you to the administration, are businesses already informed when they're being shut down, why they're being shut down?
Through you, Mr. President, of course they are.
Thank you. I have nothing wrong with the idea of transparency. I don't mind if the legislators, individual legislators, are made aware in a very timely fashion when businesses are closed down. But to entitle the whole, to lead off with these are COVID restrictions, we must never shut down COVID businesses because of COVID, it's terribly unfair, and we haven't. And I don't believe we're going to.
If we've learned anything about COVID,
excuse me, sir, I still have the floor, I think I still have the floor making a statement. I don't think that this is, a fairly titled referral. I mean, yeah, it's going to provide more transparency to the legislature, but the public already has that transparency. And because this is redundant in that sense, I will be voting against this. I apologize for that. Thank you.
Legislator
okay.
DeFlorio.
Legislator DeFlorio.
Thank you. To either the administration or whoever, some of the legislators that have brought this up, I guess I'm a little confused. Everyone's stating that we should have somehow known that no businesses were closed down. Is there some kind of a report that everyone else has seen? I mean, does the administration regularly notify us of that no businesses have been shut down? How would any legislator or the public know if we had not been having this meeting this evening?
Through you, Mr. President, there are over 4,500 employees who work for Monroe County on a daily basis. They perform a vast number of functions and duties. So no, there's a lot of things that go on in county government that we don't report back to the legislature on. That's something that falls into that. The closing of the buildings is something that falls into that category. If there is a request for specific information, as I said before, we would not only be glad to provide that, that's public information, and we would be required to provide that under law. So,
my question is, short of any one of us specifically asking that question, we would not have known that answer. Is that correct?
That's correct, as with pretty much every other function that county government performs.
Well, if there's another function that we would like to have regular reporting on, I guess we'll have to ask. But in this case, my statement is that I think that in a time when businesses are struggling, that this is a positive step forward for transparency and for us as a legislative body to know if these closures had or had not occurred. So thank you. I yield the floor.
Legislator Hebert.
Legislator Hebert.
Yes, through you, Mr. President, to the administration. In all cases where the county may require a business to close or curtail its operations in any way, do those notices inform the business of what specific actions they have to do to reopen or resume normal operations?
Through you, Mr. President, yes, there's a a whole process that's outlined whenever the county, or I should say on those rare occasions when the county does something like this, there is a process that the information is shared. And I would also think many times with this, my experience in government is that it's not necessarily a punitive approach unless it is a very bad or a very egregious violation. I know our staff tries to work with people to make corrective action, but no, it's not like the county's ever in a position where we surprise a business and close them and they have no idea what it's about, again, unless it's an extreme health and safety issue of which they would be notified of.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. President, to the administration, and that is done in writing in each and every case at the time of closure.
Through you, Mr. President, yes, it is.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. President, one last question. During the what I'll call the middle months of the COVID situation, Governor Cuomo was actually beating pretty hard on the counties regarding the counties not enforcing his executive orders the way he wanted them to, and the counties being local. He usually referred to them as local governments, had to be more stringent in their enforcement. Despite those statements, am I to believe that the county, and I'm aware of several situations where the county was notified of bars that were, reopened and overcrowded and people were not masked and not social distancing, et cetera, that in no instance did the county take any action here for our local businesses?
Through you, Mr. President. No, the county health department didn't. Actions like that would have fallen under the jurisdiction of the state liquor authority, and I also believe that a lot of the code enforcement would fall to local municipalities.
Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor.
Legislator Baines.
Legislator Baines.
I'd like to explain my vote. It seems to me there are two key statistics regarding this matter this evening. The first one is the number 0, which is the number of business closures that have happened in our county. And the second statistic is the number 1, which is the number of press conferences about the fact that we haven't had a business closure in our county. So I think that I want to hear from business owners that this is a problem and not from politicians. So I'm going to be voting no. I think this is overreach on the part of the Monroe County government. Thank you.
Should we go to a roll call vote?
Legislator Morelli.
Clerk? Legislator Morelli.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you to the administration, it's been referenced several times here this evening about bars. In particular, it was referenced that I believe it was mentioned that underage drinking would be something that this legislation is somehow going to make legislators aware of businesses that are violating that. And the question to the administration is does the county have any authority on anything that was said in that comment?
Through you, Mr. President, any violations of the liquor law, such as serving underage individuals, would fall outside of the scope of county government and would fall under the authority of the state liquor authority and then also law enforcement.
Anything else, Legislator Morelli?
No, thank you. I will be voting no. This is a complete waste of time. Thank you, Mr. President.
Legislator Udelson.
Yeah, Legislator Udelson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just quickly through you. You stated earlier that the legislature shouldn't have to hear about these closings through the media. I would agree with that. And this referral was proposed. During my time on the legislature, lots of questions have been submitted by legislators to the administration with pretty lengthy answers being provided. So as far as the reason for this, were there inquiries made for this kind of information to the administration that were refused?
Not that, I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. The administration wouldn't have let me know that.
Well, no, I was just wondering on your, why you would, propose this if that hadn't been a problem, but I understand your point. And I guess my question just for you or any of the legislators who have been on the, in this honorable body longer than I, under previous administrations, how was the legislature notified of this? Because we're just getting to it being a referral now, so I'm assuming before you received that notification, how did that happen?
Is it to me or the administration? Sure.
No, I was asking for any of the legislators who, yourself as the maker of the motion, or any of the legislators who have spoken about wanting to make sure that they're notified. I'm asking, I guess, about why now, if there haven't been things that have been closed during COVID, why this is being proposed at this time.
Well, because we've seen it happen in other counties, and we want to be a little proactive to protect businesses. And the legislature has consistently been forced to practically beg the administration for information, and if this is in writing and this is a law, they're going to have to provide it. If you don't think letting businesses know ahead of time what's going on and why it's happening, and you don't think transparency is important, then you'll be voting no.
No, absolutely. If I was to vote no through you, Mr. President, it wouldn't be because I'm against transparency, but just rather not really seeing the need for this. Certainly, this administration or previous one would let the business owners know if they're being closed, what the reason for it was. And, it seems that a lot of things that weren't an issue during previous administrations are since the new administration. But that's just my observation, and I appreciate the opportunity to ask you about it. Thank you.
Legislator Barroth.
Legislator Barroth.
Thank you. I just want to respond that I'll be voting no, and I do believe in transparency, and I do believe businesses should be notified ahead of time before they are closed. And in fact, currently by law, they are informed ahead of time by law. They also informed how to open up again and how to rectify any violations of the liquor law they may have done, or the health violations to do with things such as vermin infestations and such. This is already occurring. I also would like to point out that, I used the word redundant before, and I remember now, I recall who it was. It was Legislator Quattro, who, as you may recall, is a rather conservative fellow, but he was very consistent in his conservatism, and he had some things to say about redundancy and legal proposals, and how if it's already done, you don't need to do it again and have additional laws, just to have a law, just to have something to point to. So for those reasons, and my undying respect for transparency and informing businesses of, they're being shut down and why and how to rectify it beforehand, I will be voting against this law. Thank you.
Legislator Roman.
Legislator Roman.
Through you, Mr. President, to you as the maker of this piece of legislation, having heard that businesses already are receiving the information. Can you explain how you feel that this further protects businesses?
Because if this law goes through, there's going to be three criteria that have to be met. A detailed written report that provides justification for the decision to order closure signed by the Monroe County government official ordering the closure, a copy of the official order or communication ordering the closure, and any and all evidence in the possession of Monroe County government on which the closure is based. So again, it'll be a more transparent procedure. We'll know everything about it, and we'll be able to decide if it's fair. And those criteria haven't been met up till now.
Okay, thank you for that. What part of that criteria is not being met, in your opinion?
All of it, as far as I know. All of it.
And that's because you've had conversations in regards to any of these things not happening or occurring?
Right. Nobody's ever informed us of any of this. Have you ever seen any of this information?
Dr. Carbone, I'm understanding that other individuals and legislators have received and seen this information. The question was intended for the maker of the motion. I'm just wondering what kind of conversations, I think the question was posed already, what kind of conversations have happened and occurred to bring to light the necessity for this particular set of requirements. But we don't have to keep talking about that. I guess my next question would be, what, in your opinion, would this notification be used for? So what are you foreseeing legislators doing with this information?
Again, to protect businesses, to be more transparent, and to let people know what's going on. I mean, if you owned a business and you were getting closed down, you'd want to, I think that these criteria should be met in all fairness.
And they're not being met, in your opinion, right now?
Right now, you know.
Okay. Well, thank you for having this dialogue. I am not seeing any justification for adding any set of extra regulations or extra protocols. I don't see any deficiencies currently in the current process, nor have I heard from you or anyone else that this is not necessarily occurring in a different process. So for that reason, I will be voting no.
Well, as legislators, I think we should be supporting our local businesses any way we can.
Morelli.
Legislator Morelli.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you to the administration, it was I believe the president himself just said that these businesses are not notified. The administration clarify, are the businesses notified when it is that they shut down?
I said that the legislature is not being notified and the criteria hasn't been met.
Due respect, Mr. President, you said that the businesses weren't notified, so I'd like to clarify that through the administration that they alert businesses as to the reasons behind why they're being shut down.
Through you, Mr. President, yes, the due process requires us to notify businesses of why they're being closed. And this legislation deals strictly with the legislature. As far as our reading of it, it doesn't require us to provide any additional information to businesses.
So through you, Mr. President, then to the administration, it's fair to say that this legislation really only satisfies the a requirement that only the people in this legislature get some additional attention as it pertains to the standard operating procedures of the Monroe County of Monroe County government. Is that how the administration sees this bill? Simply to satisfy some egos here?
Through you, Mr. President, again, my understanding is it would only provide information to legislators.
Through you, Mr. President, it was suggested again by the president of the legislature that that somehow if a business was shut down by the county government, that if it was deemed unfair, that then the legislature would somehow be able to say, well, that was unfair. Through you to the administration, would the legislature have any role in being able to have any say as to whether the business should or shouldn't have been shut down, or even have the ability to open the business?
Through you, Mr. President, this legislation would not trump state law and sanitary law and other items that would govern these regulations.
And I'll just to explain my vote, for anyone to say that this somehow protects businesses is really just laughable, because as the administration just said, all it does is give a report to the legislature. It doesn't do anything in connection with businesses. Businesses don't have any additional information that they wouldn't have had already. They already have the information as it pertains to why they were shut down. And in this case, the county government, the administration has said that the only reason that a business would be shut down is for health purposes, in which case that information is all public. So we're really not helping any businesses here. Businesses don't get any additional transparency. The only transparency piece is that it seems like the Republican legislators don't know where to find public information. Perhaps you should, Google it. Thank you, Mr. President.
President Carbone, Legislator
Yes.
Boyd.
Legislator Boyce.
It's kind of interesting that some of the legislators believe that it's not important for us to know and to be able to inform our constituents when a business is closed. And in particular, a few years past, we passed legislation specifically with regards to pawn shops and if they were violating laws. And that is something that, as a legislator, I have a duty to know and to want to know when a pawn shop is being closed and what the reasons were. So I appreciate you bringing this forth. I think that, to just sit back and say that we're going to take this one day at a time, and when the administration wants to give us the information, we'll get it. If they don't want to give it to us, we won't. And the statement that Mr. McCann made speaks loud and clear to me that they're not going to give us the information if we don't do this legislation. So thank you for bringing it forward, and I will be voting in the affirmative.
Thank you, Legislator Boyce.
Mr. President, Legislator Felder.
Legislator Felder.
I come down on, I think I see both sides of the argument. I guess for me, having an oversight role that the legislature does have, we'd like to know and be sure that county departments are not operating in arbitrary and capricious manners in the way they do things. So they're not playing favorites, they're not closing some businesses, not closing others who have similar violations and those types of things. So I think a little sunshine doesn't hurt anything. And if when I'm hearing from some of the legislators that this doesn't make a difference, it's not going to change anything. I don't see like great hue and cry. I tend to believe that it's good to be able, because sometimes we have businesses that are in our districts who feel like they're being unfairly targeted and other things, and they call us. And so it's good to be able to know some of these things so that we can look and just make sure that there's transparency. Never hurt anybody. I said this more than one time. We complained, at least for the first 4 years I was on the legislature, we complained all the time about the Republican legislators being in lockstep with the administration and never questioning anything. And I never want to be accused of that. I believe that we should act as an independent branch of government and perform our role as we're supposed to. And that's the best thing that can happen in the best interest of all of the taxpayers and residents of Monroe County. So I'll be voting for this.
Thank you, Legislator Felder. I think a lot of the legislators are forgetting it's this body that can create the laws and change the laws. So with this transparency, if we feel that something isn't fair, we have the right to change the laws and make laws. So for some of the legislators to say it doesn't have any impact and it's a waste of time and it's not transparent, I don't know where they're getting that, but that's their opinion, and they're more than, it's their prerogative to vote no. But I don't agree with it.
Legislator.
Can we go to a roll call vote?
Yeah, let's go to a roll call vote.
Legislator Hebert.
Legislator Hebert. We're going to go to a roll call vote. Is that okay?
I just wanted to make a couple of comments and explain my vote.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Make a couple comments.
Thank you. We've all seen the open and close cycles that have been driven by various actions during the COVID pandemic. And none of us, I don't think, would say that this hasn't had a deleterious effect upon our businesses, especially our small businesses. Several of the legislators have commented that this is additional unnecessary regulation. I don't see it as that at all. I see it as reporting from the legislative to the legislative branch from the administrative branch. And it shouldn't require any more work since it's been described that these reports are already written and thorough. Then somebody basically saying, oh yeah, got to tell the legislature, I'll send it to the clerk. And then the clerk distributes it to the rest of us. The simple fact of the matter is that Mr. McCann at one point said that the newspapers can report on these things because they issue press releases. Well, I know for a fact that the newspapers don't report on everything they get in a press release. We did a press conference last week and not a single publication or TV station said a word about it or printed a word about it that I could find. So I don't think that's adequate. And therefore, we do have an oversight role as this legislature. And if we don't know what's going on, we cannot perform that oversight role. Therefore, the transparency that this will drive and enabling us to perform that role, I will be voting for this. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Legislator Hebert. Roll call vote. Mr. Clerk? Mr. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Brew votes yes. Mr. Felder?
Yes.
Mr. Felder votes yes. Mr. Flagler Mitchell?
Yes, absolutely.
Mr. Flagler Mitchell votes yes. Mr. Alcoffer?
Yes.
Mr. Alcoffer votes yes. Mr. Ansello?
Yes.
Mr. Ansello votes yes. Ms. Barnhart?
No.
Ms. Barnhart votes no. Mr. Baroff?
No.
Mr. Baroff votes no. Mr. Baines?
No.
Mr. Baines votes no. Ms. Boyce?
Yes.
Ms. Boyce votes yes. Mr. Colby?
Yes.
Mr. Colby votes yes. Mr. Delahanty?
Yes.
Mr. Delahanty votes yes. Ms. DeFlorio?
Yes.
DeFlorio votes yes. Mr. Dondorfer?
Yes.
Mr. Dondorfer votes yes. Ms. Hassman?
No.
Ms. Hassman votes no. Mr. Hebert?
Yes.
Mr. Hebert votes yes. Mr. Keofelasi?
Yes.
Mr. Keofelasi votes yes. Ms. Lamar?
Yes.
Ms. Lamar votes yes. Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Lee votes yes. Mr. Mafucci?
No.
Mr. Mafucci votes no. Mr. Marinetti?
Yes.
Mr. Marinetti votes yes. Mr. Morelli?
No.
Mr. Morelli votes no. Ms. Roman?
No.
Ms. Roman votes no. Ms. Smith? Ms. Smith is excused. Ms. Taylor?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor votes yes. Mr. Terp?
Yes.
Mr. Terp votes yes. Mr. Wilcox?
No.
Mr. Wilcox votes no. Mr. Wilt?
Yes.
Mr. Wilt votes yes. Mr. Udelson?
No.
Mr. Udelson votes no. President Carbone?
Yes.
President Carbone votes yes. 19-9. Referral passes.
Next item.
Item number 2, referral 21-0085, authorize a contract with CHA Consulting, Inc. for design services for runway 10-28 obstruction removals, Phase 2 project at Frederick Douglass Greater Rochester International Airport.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by Legislator Dondorfer, seconded by Legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion?
Legislator Barrow.
Legislator Barra?
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you to the administration, do private homeowners need to sign off on tree removals on their properties?
Mr. President, I believe we have Andy Moore or Mike Wall available for that.
Yes, through you, Mr. President, this is Mike Wall, the construction manager at the Frederick Douglass Greater Rochester International Airport. Yes, the homeowners do have to sign off on tree removals.
And through the President to the administration, and a homeowner can, by implication, also refuse to do so, correct?
Through you, Mr. President, yes, that is correct. But then again, this is for the safety of the airport. So of all the years that I've done this, I haven't really run into a case where a homeowner doesn't want the tree removed.
Yeah, I agree. I just want to make sure that at the end of the day, the homeowner does control the homeowner's property. But thank you very much.
Through you, Mr. President, yes, that is correct.
Thank you.
Legislator Hebert.
Legislator Hebert, you have the floor.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. President, to the administration, through the, is it likely eminent domain would have to be used if a homeowner disapproved of the removal of a tree? Would it have to be used?
Through you, Mr. President, I would like to ask Don Crum to step in and answer that legal question.
Through the President, it would not be eminent domain. It doesn't meet the criteria.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. President, the administration, if a homeowner did disagree with removal of a tree, is there a way to get permission to take it down? If they just say no?
Through the chair, we would have to go through the FAA and ask their opinion on how we should proceed.
Okay, thank you. Through you, Mr. President, the administration, just curious, if we already know which trees have to be removed, why do we need to go through design services? It seems to me like I can call a contractor pretty quickly and get a tree taken down for about $400. I'm just not sure why we need design services for this.
Through you, Mr. President, that's a great question. Basically, what CHA does is not only do they look at the height of the trees, they also look at the surrounding vegetation. This is basically a once in a 20, 25-year type project. It's not something that we do in a year. It is, or that we do every year. This is a maintenance issue that we need at the airport to be able to keep our indexes and safety factors for airplanes both approaching and departing the airport itself.
Through you to the administration, and I fully understand why we do this. What I don't understand, I mean, what do these design services provide? Is it literally, doing some algebra or some geometry to calculate the height of trees?
Through you, Mr. President. Yep, no, through you, Mr. President. There's a lot of coordination with the FAA, as you might assume with this. So the coordination with the FAA has to happen. It's all part of the package service that CHA will provide for us. There is some grants assurances that we need to keep up with as well, too.
Thank you. I yield the floor.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Item carries. Next.
Item number 3, referral 21-0086, authorize a cooperative agreement with the United States Department of Homeland Security, Transportation Security Administration for law enforcement personnel reimbursement at the Frederick Douglass Greater Rochester International Airport.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
By legislator Dondorfer, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? And carries. Next.
Item number 4, referral 21-0087, authorize a joint agreement with the United States Department of the Interior for the Water Resources Investigations Project.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
By legislator Dondorfer, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion?
Legislator Barroth.
Legislator Barra.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you to the administration, the portion of cost that is borne by the county and the Interior Department, is that the same as it's been in past years? Right now, it's 18% for the United States Department of the Interior and 82% for us. Is that the same as the past contract?
Through you, Mr. President, this is Mike Garland from DES. The federal share has decreased over the years. It was as high as 40% a few cycles ago. Again, this is our sixth five-year agreement with the Department of Interior on this, but over time, yes, their share has decreased.
Okay, and so through the President to the administration, I know there's nothing we can do about this. They make the rules. Can we anticipate, however, that given past trends, this is going to continue to be the case moving forward?
Through you, Mr. President, I'm hesitant to speculate. Again, this is a 5-year contract. I guess one could assume that it will decrease, but it is providing great value to the county, both from a water quality, hydrologic, as well as a emergency planning, emergency management component too.
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely, I agree. I mean, we definitely need to approve this. I was just concerned. I seem to recall the last time we did this, it was a little better, but I wasn't sure. But thank you so much. And yes, of course, I'll be voting in favor.
Any further discussion?
Legislator Hebert.
Legislator Hebert.
Quick question through you, Mr. President, the administration. Could you just summarize what the output of this provides and what the accomplishments we can achieve are because of it?
Certainly. Through Mr. President, there's a number of stream gauges throughout the county. We will be adding 4 additional gauges with a hydrological component to them, where we're looking at the stage and level of the streams. We get water quality data, as you know, for the Irondequoit Creek watershed and other areas within the county. They generate reports for us. The information is very useful, to local municipalities, but also to the county when we're looking at emergency management planning, so that we can monitor whether it's trends or real time the levels in creeks and water bodies throughout the county that are susceptible to flooding.
Thank you. Excellent answer as always, Mr. Garland. I yield the floor.
Any further? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 5, referral 21-0089, amend resolution 104 of 2019 to increase and extend the contract with Monroe County Soil and Water Conservation District.
Move it, Mr. President.
By Legislator Dondorfer, seconded by Legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion?
Legislator Barroth.
Legislator Barra.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you to the administration, I'm looking at the referral, and the referral states that the Soil and Water Conservation District will use these funds to, quote, support its current work on the regional stormwater management facility being constructed at Finn Park. What exactly will this additional funding be used for if this is already the current work of the Soil and Water Conservation District through the President?
Through you, Mr. President, this additional funding will be used to construct a diversion structure at a offline detention facility located in Finn Park in the town of Webster along Shipbuilders Creek. So it will provide a water quality benefit as well as a flood protection or flood mitigation benefit as well too. So specifically, the additional funding was identified to support the construction of this permanent diversion structure.
Thank you. And the grant funding through the President will be used to pay for this, correct?
Through Mr. President, that is correct.
And then my final question is, and I have nothing against this project in particular, I guess my question is, if we did not use the grant funding for this project, what was the grant funding going to be used for, or was this part of why we got the grant funding through the President?
Through Mr. President, again, this was, as you might recall, the FLOPA grants come to us in 2-year cycles. In fact, your honorable body just approved 2 2-year cycles recently. This is an older grant cycle where all the funds hadn't been expended, and there was funding available, and there was a discussion with the Soil and Water Conservation District on how it can best be utilized. And we felt this provided the best water quality and hydrologic benefit for those funds.
Okay, so it's leftover funds then. Thank you.
That is correct.
All right.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next.
Item number 6, referral 21-0090, acceptance of a grant from the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation for the Climate Smart Communities Project, Regional Community Rating System Strategy Project, and authorize a contract with Bergman Associates, Architects, Engineers, Landscape Architects, and Surveyors, DPC.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Legislator Dondorfer, seconded by Legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion?
Legislator Barroth.
Legislator Barra.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you to the administration, I had a question regarding the statement. It says this project will bring new communities into the CRS. And my question is, what are these new communities? Are they towns? Are they neighborhoods? Do we know? Through the President.
Yes, through Mr. President, it would be other municipalities, whether it's town, village, or the city, where they have a lot of their land that may be in a floodplain. And for them to be eligible to be on the community rating system, they have to take a number of steps, best management practices within their municipality above the minimum requirements of the National Flood Insurance Program. And then that will translate to reductions in flood insurance for residents in their community.
Thank you. I guess what I'm really getting at here is I understand that's what it does. My question is, are we working with neighborhoods or municipalities or right now so that they will take advantage of this opportunity?
Oh, yeah. Through you, Mr. President, yes. Outreach will be a critical component of this effort. We're really here to assist those towns and villages to become rated on the CRS system, and that's what Bergman will assist us with. We will be reaching out to every town, every municipality about this program, making them aware of it. As you know, we have an established structure with the Stormwater Coalition in Monroe County, so we will be reaching out and communicating through them so that everyone's aware of this program. As you probably read in the referral, the town of Greece is already on the program. They can enhance their rating, and we will offer our services to the town of Greece as well.
Thank you. And this is just a statement. As some of you may know, I served on the Stormwater Conservation Board for quite a while, and our colleague, Legislator Brew, the majority leader, currently serves on that body. And I would urge anyone who has even the thought that their district might contain floodplains to speak to their appropriate people to say this is a great opportunity to save the citizens some funds, particularly in taxation. So I'd urge you to do that. I live in the city, and I'm pretty sure I don't live in a floodplain. But nonetheless, quite a few of us do, and we really should take advantage of this opportunity. Thank you.
Any further discussion? None, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next, 7.
Item number 7, referral 21-0091, acceptance of a grant from the New York State Division of Criminal Justice Services for the 2020 Paul Coverdell Forensic Science Improvement Program, Monroe County Crime Lab.
Move it, Mr. President.
Moved by Legislator Boyd, seconded by Legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 8, referral 21-0092, acceptance of a grant from the New York State Division of Criminal Justice Services for the County Reentry Task Force Program and authorize a contract with Delphi Drug and Alcohol Council, Inc.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by Legislator Boyd, seconded by Legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Item carries. Next.
Item number 9, referral 21-0093, acceptance of a grant from the Department of Justice, Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention for improving outcomes for justice-involved youth with behavioral health challenges.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second. By Legislator Boyce, seconded by Legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion on this? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Carries. Next item.
Item number 10, referral 21-0094, authorize a contract with Orion Communications, Inc. for a scheduling software solution for the Sheriff's Office.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second. By Legislator Boyce, seconded by Legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion?
Legislator Hebert.
Legislator Hebert.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you to the administration. What scheduling functions is this being used for?
Scott Alberti through the chair. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. It's going to provide a scheduling, automated scheduling service for us. In addition to that, it's going to interface with SAP and help with timekeeping, as well as help us better track where our costs are and our manpower use.
Through you, Mr. President, you said it's for scheduling functions. Are there specific scheduling functions like shifts, or what are you scheduling?
Yes, we're a 24/7 agency, as you know. We have 4 different bureaus, so it'd be scheduling within the jail, our different shifts, dates, and times, as well as for patrol, court, and civil.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. President, to the administration, do the interfaces with SAP that are mentioned in the referral and were just mentioned in the response require any SAP software customization?
Through the chair, we've worked with County IS and their SAP experts. So there will be interface built, and that is built into the contract we have with Orion. But we are working with County IS in this process.
Understood, but through you, Mr. President, the administration, I'm looking to see if there is any. It's one thing to build an interface, it's another thing to customize SAP. I'm trying to draw that distinction in your answer.
Through the chair, we are not going to change the function of SAP. We're not going to customize that. This program will work with SAP. So the workaround will be with this program.
Through you, Mr. President of the administration, is there someone from the IT department? I 27-year IBM sales exec. I understand the differences. I'm not sure that the gentleman responding really understands the question. Is there someone from the IT department that could answer that?
Mr. President, Robert Franklin, County Finance. Although I'm not from IT, I was in 2 conferences with the Sheriff's Office and County IT when they talked about the scheduling system and the vendor choices before the Orion was selected. And I believe the word you're looking for is that this will require configuration, but not customization.
Yes, sir.
Configuration is a much simpler and cost-effective means.
And through you, Mr. President, so the answer is that it requires only configuration.
Only configuration, Mr. President.
Thank you. That's what I was looking for. And then final question through you, Mr. President. Who owns the hardware that will run the software? Is it part of our IT department or something else?
Through the chair, it's a cloud-based product.
Thank you. I yield the floor.
Legislator Barroth?
Legislator, go ahead.
Thank you. I just have one question for the administration. So through the president to the administration, I can't but heartily endorse the move from 2010 Excel spreadsheets to this process. So I'm all for it. My only concern is, and I'm assuming the answer to this question is it's been done, but when you have call it a homegrown system like that, you oftentimes have reports that the person who's been maintaining those sheets has put together for the administration or put together for leadership. Are those the same data that they used to get from those old reports going to be accessible through the SAP system, through the president?
Through the chair, so that data will maintain with us. But in fact, we are going to gain much more data with this new system. That's part of the goal here. That's part of the point for efficiency. So we're looking forward to this program and assisting us with this process.
Oh, yeah, I totally agree. I mean, it's clearly going to give you tons more than you have now. And when we went to the new SAP system about, I want to say 6 years ago, whatever it was, the administration was able to, and our financial officer can tell us about this. They're able to really parse out funding in a way that was extremely beneficial. I guess I just want to, as long as the sheriff's office is comfortable that the new set of data they're getting will include all the old stuff they used to get and maybe are used to, that's been just considered. And I'm just hoping you'll be able to give me an affirmative.
Through the chair, yes, that's correct.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next.
Item number 11, referral 21-0095, acceptance of a grant from the New York State Division of Criminal Justice Services for the Motor Vehicle Theft and Insurance Fraud Prevention Program, Office of the Sheriff.
Wait, Mr. President.
Legislator Boyd, seconded by Legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion on this? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Number 12.
Item number 12, referral 21-0096, authorize federal equitable sharing agreements with the United States Department of Justice and the United States Department of the Treasury.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second. Moved by Legislator Boyd, seconded by Legislator Dondorfer. Excuse me. Is there any discussion?
Yes, Mr. President.
Yes, Legislator Boyd, you
Yes,
have the floor.
through the chair to the Sheriff's Department, could you give us examples of how we've benefited from this agreement in the last year?
Through the President, Chief Deputy Michael Fowler. Yes, we have benefited from this equitable sharing agreement that's run by the federal government. Their process is to first make reparations to the victims in criminal cases, and then the remaining funds are distributed through law enforcement after the court cases are adjudicated. But as far as the sheriff's office and how we spend this money, we're bound by the agreement that we signed with the DOJ on how to use this. And we have made several significant purchases over the years. Most recently, our replacement of the marine unit docks in order to accommodate the high water from Lake Ontario. We have replaced our boat hoists and repairs to our 2 older boat hoists. We've invested in video conferencing platforms to be able to accommodate the new Zoom and video conferencing environment that we're in. We've purchased personal protective gear for deputies. This is above and beyond what's already in our budget. We've done opioid educational materials, additional computers to support our Monroe County Heroin Task Force. And we've paid for several training courses above and beyond what's normally budgeted each year. In addition to some forensic software, some cameras for processing crime scenes, and furniture replacement.
Very good. As a follow-up question, Deputy Chief, and so what was the total dollar amount on the forfeitures we were able to gain in the past year through the president?
Through you, Mr. President, in 2020, we received just over $53,000 into that fund. That's a third of what we normally receive.
Thank you, Deputy Chief. I appreciate the answers.
Any further discussion?
Legislator Barth?
Legislator Barth.
Just as a quick follow-up, through the president to the administration, is that a decrease in funding likely the result of, like everything else, the pandemic?
Through you, Mr. President, yes, sir, we believe it is.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Item carries. Next.
Item number 13, referral 21-0097, acceptance of a grant from the New York State Division of Criminal Justice Services for the Motor Vehicle Theft and Insurance Fraud Prosecution Program, District Attorney's Office.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second. By Legislator Boyce, seconded by Legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion on this? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next.
Item number 14, referral 21-0098, acceptance of a grant from the New York State Division of Criminal Justice Services for the Crimes Against Revenue Program.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second. Moved by Legislator Boyce, seconded by Legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 15, referral 21-0099, acceptance of a grant from the Genesee Transportation Council for the Monroe County High Accident Location Program.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second. Perfect. Moved by Legislator Colby, seconded by Legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion?
Mr. President, this is Legislator Hasman.
Yes, Legislator Hasman.
Through you, Mr. President, to the administration, does this grant include any study or any research into pedestrian or bicycle accidents? Is that included in the high accident grant?
Mr. President, we have Jim Pond available.
Yes, sorry, Jeff. Through the president, this is Jim Pond from County DOT. I administer that program. Explicitly, they are in there. The program is primarily looking at all types of accidents through crash rates. It's a global program looking at the entire system and trying to find where the most crashes are occurring. It is not segregated at first into vehicle accidents, pedestrian accident, bicycle accidents. But once we do identify a location for study, then we study it in detail, including all of those types of accidents, looking for countermeasures in any one of those categories.
Great, thank you, Mr. Pond. Where I live in the city of Rochester, pedestrian accidents and bicycle accidents are very prevalent, so I'll just put a bug in your ear to take a close look at those. Thank you, I'm all done, thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Item carries. Next.
Item number 16, referral 21-0100, authorize a contract with Barton LaJudas DPC for engineering services for the East River Road project, New York State Thruway I-90 to Ward Road in the town of Henrietta.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by legislator Colby, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Item carries. Next.
Item number 17, referral 21-0101, authorize a contract with ML Cacamese Electric Corp. for construction services for the Highway Lighting Rehabilitation North Project in the city of Rochester, town of Arundecoid.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by legislator Colby, seconded by
Legislator Colby?
Yep. Is there any discussion? Legislator Colby.
Yes. Through the chair, Mr. President, this project listed in the CIP for 3.9 plus million, but the authorization here is less than half that amount. Can somebody explain why the discrepancy in those two numbers?
Through the president, this is Jim Pond again from County DOT. A couple of things have happened through the project. Some of the scope of work got reduced while we were in design. Part of it was the New York State DOT not allowing us to replace conduit on their expressway system. So there was a large piece that was substituted with lesser work. And so the estimate, the cost estimate that we had for this current project right now for the construction phase was a little under $1.7 million. So that some of the other costs that you see include the the construction inspection phase, paying a consultant to oversee the contract construction, as well as design and other costs. So the actual construction cost you're seeing here is just the contractor's work, sir. To the president.
So through you, Mr. President, what's in the CIP is more than just this project. It also includes inspection fees or inspection costs and some engineering costs. It's not a part of this contract. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Through the president, that is correct. That the CIP includes all phases of the project. This referral is for one of those phases.
Through you, Mr. President, the other question I have, there seems to be only two bids, and there seems to be a large differential in the prices on that or costs on that. Did you go over the bids to figure out why there was such a discrepancy in the two bids?
Through the president, yes, these bids were both examined, in particular the low bidder, where most of the focus is. The low bidder was compared to the engineer's estimate. We did not find any irregularities between those two, as well as it's balanced, both in individual items and overall. A comment on the high bid, there is one item in there which is extremely high for protection of traffic. It's well out of range. I'm not sure why they bid that, but when you take that item out, the bids are much closer.
All right, thank you. I yield the floor back to you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this?
Legislator Brew.
Legislator Brew, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. To the president, to the administration, I'm curious as to why the state DOT, if the administration might know, why they would not permit the replacement of the conduit, because of my limited experience with highway lighting systems and my own failure at my town out here on the west side. The failure occurred because of the lighting distribution conduit underground, right? The poles might have been fine, but you get into the expense when you actually start replacing the conduits or the wires that have failed. So if this original scope work actually provided for that amount of money to replace those conduits, which I totally agree with, why would the state DOT actually permit that at this point?
Through the president, Jim Pond again. It's a long story, but the state did not say absolutely no. What happened is, first of all, they had us going through shoulder work where we had to tear pavement out and put it back, which the kind of work that they recommended that we do was way beyond the budget that we had. And furthermore, we've realized over time that as we repair the conduit, put new ones in, there's a tendency to come in and drop things like signpost guardrails and stuff and tear up conduit. So what we have done instead is to replace conduit that we know is bad. And then as they go through the construction process and identify further conduit that's bad, we replace that. What we're not doing is going through and taking conduit, whether we know it's good or bad, and completely replacing it. That's the part that we took out, sir. Through the president.
Okay, thank you. And just through the president administration, it seems like, based upon the soil conditions and what you identify as failed conduit during the construction process, there's no guarantee that further down the road, I mean, these conduits have been in the ground for 60 years now, right? So, what's good now may not be so good just a few years down the road. So I do think a wholesale replacement was probably a good idea. It's too bad that the restrictions were placed by the state DOT that didn't allow us probably to do the job what I consider to be right the first time. I yield the floor, and thank you.
Any further discussion on this?
Legislator Roman?
Legislator Roman?
Yes, I'd just like to declare my interest. My fiance works for Cockman's Construction.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Yes, Legislator Boyce.
Legislator Boyce.
Yes, through the president, to Mr. Pond. Can you, at the end of your comment, before Legislator Brew had asked his question, you said something about traffic. I believe you said traffic safety or safety to traffic. Can you give an explanation as to what you mean?
Through the president, I'll try to remember what I said. I apologize if I don't get just right. I was referring at some point to traffic signs and installations and guide rail installations. I'm not sure if that's what you're referring to. They actually damage the conduit because the posts go down under the ground. So they're safe for traffic, but they're very bad for conduits. I believe that may have been what I said, but honestly, Mr. President, I'm not sure.
President, I think it was in regards to the two bids and the disparity in the two bids. Yeah, the cost, I think, was the question.
The difference in the cost.
Okay.
And you said it was something to do with the safety, traffic safety situation was way high on the higher bid. So I think she's alluding to what's included or what type of stuff is that activity.
Through the president, thank you very much for the clarification. That helped a lot. So what it is, it's called the Maintenance and Protection of Traffic, and that is the lane closures, crash trucks, advanced signs warning about the lanes, say a half mile ahead of time, that flash electronic messages, and their cost at the higher bidder was like 5 or 6 times the engineer's estimate. I really don't know why they put such a high number on there, but it overwhelmed the bid. Any other item was almost irrelevant at that point.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, Legislator Colby, for bringing that back to us.
Good. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Item carries. Next.
Item number 18, referral 21-0102, authorize a contract with Keeler Construction Company, Inc. for construction services and authorize a contract with CSX Transportation, Inc. for the South Wynton Road project in the towns of Brighton and Henrietta.
Move it, Mr. President.
Moved by legislator Colby, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion?
Legislator Barroth.
Legislator Burrow.
Thank you. Through you to the administration, in the second paragraph of the referral, it makes reference to the work will, quote, also include reimbursement to CSX transportation for flagging and such. Do we have an estimate of how much that reimbursement might be to the president?
Through the president, this is Jim Pond. I'm going to have to get back to you on that one. I don't have that at hand.
Okay, I would appreciate that. And the follow-up question to that is the flip side. Through the president, will CSX be providing any safety enhancements for this crossing, or is it strictly us doing the work through the president?
Through the president, Jim Pond again, there is enhancements to the railroad crossing system there because there's some sidewalk going in. There are going to be pedestrian gates being added along the side of the road, in addition to the vehicle gates that are there now.
Yes, and through the president, will CSX be helping in these costs or no? Through the president.
Through the president, my understanding is those are in our CIP costs to make those improvements, as I recall, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Mr. President,
Legislator Baroth, I don't know if this will help you, but if you read the referral number 2, I think this is the number you were looking for, 227,000
CSX.
For CSX.
Yeah, I believe you're correct. Thank you.
Thank you.
Legislator Colby.
Thank you.
Legislator Colby.
Through you, Mr. President, I don't see this project listed separately in the CIP. So is it under one of the safety enhancement programs, general programs, or where is it in the CIP program? Through you, Mr. President.
Through the president, this one was in a past CIP. It's an active project. It's not in the future CIP, but it's in the current CIP.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. President, how long has this project been active then?
Through the president, in the last 2 years, it's been in design. It's in the 2019-2024 CIP. It's about 2 years ago went into design. Now it's getting ready for construction.
Okay, thank you. I'll yield the floor back to you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this referral? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Carries. Next.
Item number 19, referral 21-0103, acceptance of 3 grants from the CARES Act Provider Relief Fund HHS Stimulus COVID Infection Mortality Rate Incentive Program distribution to support safeguarding residents from the perils of the coronavirus pandemic at Monroe Community Hospital.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second. Moved by legislator Hebert, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion?
Legislator Barroth.
Legislator Barroth.
Thank you. Through the president to the administration, I recognize the purpose of these the grants are to essentially incentivize reducing the rate of spread of COVID compared to the surrounding community. My question is the amount granted a yes, all or nothing sort of thing? You're either below the community spread rate, or you're well below, might be give you more funds, or is it just 100% or gradation? If you understand the question through the president.
Through the president, this is Alyssa Taylor from MCH. There is a very complex formula for the calculation of the payments, and there are actually 2 separate pieces that build into it. So one for mortality and one for infection. They do take into consideration the rates in the community, but also look at the nursing homes and then a variety of other very complex factors if you look at the calculation itself.
Okay, so as a follow-up question then through the president, am I correct to then believe that MCH is doing pretty well then, based on the fact that we've received these grants?
Through the president, yes, we did receive payments for the periods of September, October, and November. There was an incentive payment awarded for December that we did not receive, and we are still waiting to see if we will be a recipient of part of the aggregate payment as well.
So finally, as a last follow-up, and the reason we did not receive the December payment is we just don't know yet, or we simply didn't receive it?
Through the president, we did not receive. That was the month that we did see the most infections at MCH. So we did not receive for that period.
Okay, thank you.
Legislator Hebert.
Legislator Hebert.
Through you, Mr. President of the administration, what are the funds going to be used for?
Through the president, we can use them for a variety of different things. However, since testing costs were significantly high due to regulations to test residents for outbreak testing and staff twice weekly, chances are that will be where most of the funding does end up going towards.
Thank you. And the final quick question through you, Mr. President of the administration. What, if any, reporting requirements exist for this grant funding?
Through the president, they are still working on what the reporting is going to look like. It is not going to follow the same reporting guidelines as what the bulk of the CARES stimulus money went through. So I believe last month they did update, but they are still updating for this. And as I said before, they haven't even released the aggregate payment yet. So they're a little behind on what they projected they would do.
Understood. Thank you. I yield the floor.
Legislator DeFlorio.
Legislator DeFlorio.
Yes, through the president to the administration, you mentioned the cost of testing. So I've been kind of curious about this. Did nursing homes, were they able to use any of the rapid testing that came into the county, the tests, let's say, that were distributed to the school districts and other places, or did you have to purchase your testing separately?
Through the president, nursing homes had the ability to determine what type of testing they did want to use for their residents and for their staff. Obviously, early on, using the point of care testing required a CLIA waiver for nursing homes, so not all nursing homes were able to perform that. MCH does have a CLIA waiver, and we have geared towards using the point of care testing more. When the state did come through and require twice a week testing again, they did actually provide nursing homes with enough point of care tests to support the second weekly test. Beyond that, nursing homes were required to kind of figure out what they were going to use. So we did focus on PCR early on, and we slowly shifted towards the point of care.
Thank you.
That's it. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next.
Item number 20, referral 21-0104, acceptance of funding from New York State Office for the Aging and authorization to contract with Lifespan of Greater Rochester, Inc. for the Medicare Improvements for Patients and Providers Act.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second. By Legislator Hebert, seconded by Legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 21, referral 21-0105, authorization and contract with United Way of Greater Rochester, Inc. for the Age-Friendly Livable Community Initiative for Older Adults.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second. By Legislator Hebert, seconded by Legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. 22. Item number 22, referral 21-0106, amend resolution 418 of 2020, authorizing contract for Monroe County Office for the Aging Programs in 2020 to 2021 to amend the agencies listed in attachment A.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
By Legislator Hebert, seconded by Legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion?
Legislator Barroth.
Legislator Barroth.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you to the administration, do we have an aggregate contract cost for the two new entities, the Lifespan and Catholic Charities?
Through you, President, yes, we do. And it should be listed on attachment A, which was provided.
Yeah, it was, but I didn't want to add everything up. Okay, I'll add it up. There was a mix in with a bunch of other agencies, which is why I was asking the question.
Through you, Mr. President, if the legislator would prefer, I could get that to him tomorrow. I'll separate it out.
If you could, that'd be wonderful. There's no rush on it. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next.
Item number 23, referral 21-0107, authorize a contract with Ultramobile Imaging, Inc. for COVID-19 specimen collection and point-of-care testing services for the Monroe County Department of Public Health.
Move it, Mr. President.
By Legislator Hebert, seconded by Legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion?
Legislator Hebert.
Legislator Hebert.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through to the administration, the specific legislative action says there will be the option to renew for 4 additional one-year terms after the period of March 16th, 21 through March 15th, 2022. Do we truly anticipate needing to renew a contract for COVID testing into 2026?
Mr. President, I believe we have Kathy Hiltunen available to answer that.
Yes, this is Kathy Hiltunen from the Health Department. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. We hope we do not need it, but with the new variants, we don't know where we're going to be in terms of testing. And this vendor assists us with homebound and other types of situations where patients can't come in to be tested. But I agree with you. I hope we don't need to, but we are, there's so much we don't know.
Through you, Mr. President, the administration, you have an option to renew. Is it possible that you would find a, different testing service, different approach for this capability that would cause you not to renew?
We sent this out to bid and we chose it on the basis of cost, local presence, and their prior history with us, which was very solid. They had a good working relationship with the county with these kinds of services. It's possible if the COVID and pandemic is completely done and we need no more home testing, we may not renew.
Through you, Mr. President, I guess my only clarification, my question is, this is a rapidly changing environment, and despite the good work this company's done in the past, there may be other options in the not too distant future. Would you consider them, or do you just automatically renew with this organization?
I think if there are, this is Kathy Hiltunen again from Nursing Manager. I think if there were other modalities that they couldn't provide, absolutely. If there are other technologies and whatever, I think we would consider that in a year.
Thank you. I yield the floor.
Great. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 24, referral 21-0108, acceptance of a grant from the University of Rochester for the Pediatric Obesity Prevention Creating Breastfeeding Friendly Communities Program.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by Legislator Hebert, seconded by Legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion? Legislator Hasman?
Yep. Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to declare my interest.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion on this?
Legislator Barroth?
Legislator Barroth.
Thank you. Through you to the administration, I believe there are 4 baby cafes, and I know where 2 of the locations are. I can't find the 3rd and 4th. One's at Lattimore Road, one's on Alexander. To the present administration, where are the other 2 sites?
Mr. President, we have Kathy Kerlock available.
Hi, this is Kathy Kerlock. So the current sites are at the Women's Health Practice on Lattimore Road, at Highland Hospital, at Alexander Park OBGYN on Alexander Avenue. And that's it. We have those 3 sites.
Oh, so it's not 4. Okay.
Not 4.
So through the President to the administration, how do women in the community find out about this resource?
Through the President, through many of them come by referral through our WIC program, and others are referred. One of the reasons why we have these baby cafes at these existing sites is because they can get referrals from the care sites themselves, and word of mouth throughout the community. This is actually the 5th year of this grant. It's the 4th year that we're participating. And so there has been a lot of word of mouth spread, and there is a lot of involvement at all of the baby cafes.
Thank you. And finally, to the President, to the administration, is there any particular specific outreaches you do to reach areas of low socioeconomic areas where where the breastfeeding rates are lower?
Through the President. The Baby Cafe grant, by definition, is focused on specific census tracts that were determined by New York State to be higher needs areas. They are certain specific city census tracts and the area of Greece. And the other outreach that happens is directly through our WIC program, which again is focused on specific high needs areas that are pre-identified. And this is a population that we serve generally anyway through the WIC program, which actually has about 9,200 participants. Obviously, not all of them breastfeeding mothers, many of them small children.
Absolutely, thank you. I guess my only thing I'd point out is, not even point out, I know that at least two of them are on bus-friendly routes, that I know. I don't know about the third one, but I assume Highland is also on a bus-friendly route because that's the inexpensive mode of transportation. Was that considered as well when the sites were located or selected?
Through the President, yes, that was a consideration in choosing the sites.
Thank you. And then finally, do you have any metrics or statistics on if you're using census tracts or zip code tracts, whatever it is you're using, to indicate you're successfully outreaching to those areas?
Through the President, that presents an interesting challenge for us because as part of the grant, we are not allowed to collect private information from the participants. And particularly now that a lot of the participation is actually done remotely, we have no way of collecting the demographics of each participant, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. And that leads to one last question for me, and I apologize for following a train of thought here. Then I understand, due to the pandemic, that a lot of things shifted to online for remote interactions, and we saw, at least with the school district, where that would cause a lot of problems for students accessing class materials and classes and things like that. Do you have any fear that the same might be occurring for those who might have uncertain internet connectivity?
Through the President, actually what we've found is that our participation has increased through the remote opportunities. And after the pandemic, while we do plan to, we're working on a sustainability plan that will continue these opportunities after the grant ends. And one of the things we're looking at is doing a model that includes some in-person baby cafes or drop-in sites and continuing the remote option for some people who like it a lot.
Mm-hmm. Okay, very interesting. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Legislator Lamar.
Legislator Lamar, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you, I just want to follow up on what Legislator Baroth was asking about the data. So if that specific data, if you aren't able to collect that, what are your measures of success? What do you use as your measures of success? Through you, Mr. President.
Through the President, we can collect actual numbers of participants. And while I don't have that at my fingertips, I can gather that information. That really is the only thing that we can collect since we are not allowed to collect private information.
Thank you. And just one follow-up question through you, Mr. President. So I'm sorry if I'm not aware of the totality of the service that is provided. If you could just walk me through that. I'm just trying to, so I understand that, say you service 100 women over the last year. But if there's a starting point and an ending point, I just want to know if you're capturing how many people come through the program and then how many people successfully complete it. Through you, Mr. President.
Through the President, it's actually a little bit different in the sense that there isn't necessarily a beginning and end for a participant. They choose when they want to start, and they continue for as long as they choose to participate. So many of the participants are early in their breastfeeding experience where they need more support, more advice and guidance, which surprisingly our breastfeeding peer counselors are able to do remotely. And so many of them have a more intense involvement for a period of several weeks, and then they might drop off and be less involved. So there isn't really kind of, if you're looking for somebody who kind of like starts and participates and sort of graduates, there isn't that kind of thing. I don't know if that helps. Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you very much. I yield the floor.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Item carries. Next.
Item number 25, referral 21-0109, acceptance of a grant from the New York State Division of Criminal Justice Services, the Paul Coverdale Forensic Science Improvement Program, Office of Medical Examiner's Forensic Toxicology Laboratory.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by legislator Hebert, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Item carries. Next.
Item number 26, referral 21-0110, authorize a contract with Troy and Banks, Inc. for a cost recovery audit of utility expenses.
Move it, Mr. President.
Moved by legislator Delahanty, seconded by legislator Hebert. Is there any discussion on this?
Legislator Barra.
Legislator Barra.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you to the administration, I'm always happy to see audits and looking through to how we can improve or save funds, particularly over past years. My question is twofold. One, do we have an estimate on what we anticipate to find in terms of overspending we may have done in those 4 years selected for the audit?
Mr. President, we have Director McNair available and Eric Leinenbach.
Yes, this is Jansen McNair from the Office of Public Integrity. So we're looking at recouping about $220,000.
Goodness. And so through the President of the administration, so you got clear ideas and evidence that this is going to happen, at least at some amount.
Through you, Mr. President, yes, we Troy and Banks have completed their audit. It's taken about a year for them to complete, and they're in the final stages right now, and they've given us some preliminary numbers.
Thank you. And through the President of the administration, and is it anticipated that these errors are in fact errors, or do we attribute anything else to it other than error?
Through you, Mr. President, there were some billing errors and whatnot. They looked at this 4 to 5 years worth of billing through RG&E and other utilities, and they're just looking at again that they were just errors.
Okay, fair enough. And then my final question is, because I'm always about this, so we went back to 2014 to do an audit. Is it possible or is it not possible to go further back in time?
Through you, Mr. President, Troy and Banks only goes back, would go back to 5 years. They've been doing this for a long time, and through them, they advised us that was a safe number for us to look back through. But moving forward, we are looking to, the last time we've done one was about 17 years ago. Mm-hmm. So now moving forward, we're looking to do an audit every 5 years.
Awesome. Thank you so much, because actually I had not realized we had not done an audit for 17 years, but that is a very good practice. I'd even dare say best practice. So I'm really excited that you're starting this up again this year, and then we'll do it again 5 years from now. Thank you very much.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 27, referral 21-0111, erroneous assessment refund.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by legislator Delahanty, seconded by legislator Hebert. Is there any discussion?
Legislator Barra.
Legislator Barra.
Yeah, thank you. This and the following referrals, rebating taxes that we've collected in error or whatever it might be. My question is this: in this case, I can see why the property owner would say, "There's no way I spent this much money. There must be a leak, and therefore they should be taxed for the water." But how do we confirm the fact that in fact there was a water leak through the President?
Through the President, Tim Murphy from Real Property. It was confirmed by the Rochester Water Bureau that there was an underground water leak, and the Bureau gave them a credit on their water charges, which allowed us to give a credit on their sewer charges.
Okay, so through the president, as a quick follow-up, then so what happens is they identify the leak exists, and then presumably they fix it.
Through the President, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 28, referral 21-0112, erroneous assessments, corrections, cancellations.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Moved by legislator Delahanty, seconded by legislator Hebert. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 29, referral 21-0113, authorization to settle a lawsuit in New York State Supreme Court, Monroe County, index number 13-10602.
Move it, Mr. President.
Moved by legislator Delahanty, seconded by legislator Hebert. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Item number 30, referral 21-0114, acceptance of a donation from Carnegie Mellon University to create an enrichment, cognitive research, and science outreach program at Seneca Park Zoo.
Move it, Mr. President.
Moved by legislator Elthofer, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion?
Legislator Baroff.
Legislator Baroff.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you to the administration, when do we anticipate this exhibit opening for the public?
Mr. President, we have Parks Director Meredith available.
Yes, thank you. This is through you, Mr. President. This is Pat Meredith, Director of Parks. We anticipate that this exhibit will be open within the next few months here. We've already begun pulling out the old exhibit and preparing for the new equipment to come in.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Item carries. Next, 31.
Item number 31, referral 21-0115, authorize a contract with URMC Labs, Division of the University of Rochester for laboratory services at Monroe Community Hospital.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
Seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion?
Legislator Baroff.
Legislator Baroff.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you to the administration, am I correct to understand that the reason we have an amount of $1.25 million for this year and a much smaller amount of $300,000 for one-year renewals in the following years is simply because the COVID-19 pandemic jacked up our prices this year, and that in fact normally the prices would be somewhere around $300,000 in any given year. Is that correct through the President?
Through the President, this is Alyssa. That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion?
Legislator Hebert. Go ahead.
Legislator Hasman.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I would just like to declare my interest.
Thank you. Legislator Hebert.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through to the administration, how is this additional funding being handled? Is it any part of either the CARES Act funding or the American Rescue Plan funding?
Through the President, whatever we receive in the aggregate payment will most likely go towards resident testing. Thankfully, we did see a reduction in what we had to complete for resident testing, and the URMC lab contract is only for residents. We actually finished outbreak testing and do not have to complete required testing per CMS guidance. This has been the first week in several months that we have not. So we are hoping that we will continue to see this trend with more residents and staff vaccinated.
Thank you. I yield the floor.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Item carries. Next.
Item number 32, referral 21-0116, authorize appropriation transfers for COVID-19 response actions.
Move it, Mr. President.
By legislator Hebert, seconded by legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion?
Legislator Hebert.
Legislator Hebert.
While the referral, through you, Mr. President, to the administration, while the referral specifies an amount of money, and I believe it also has specific budget line items. I'm not sure if I got lazy or ran out of time, but are these funds coming from the CARES Act funding, or where is the additional funding coming from?
Mr. President, Robert Franklin, County Finance. Yes, these appropriations are coming from the CARES Act received from the U.S. Treasury back in 2020.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. President, to the administration, I know that there was a large amount of funding available for our community hospital through the CARES Act funding as well. I just want to confirm nothing there was available to be used instead.
Mr. President, our community hospital received a variety of funding awards from the federal government related to COVID-19 pandemic. As often is the case, there are legitimate uses for each of those separate awards previously received, and sometimes a particular award can be used for multiple purposes. So while often there is a one-to-one relationship between funding and expenditure, the back office reality is we look at all of the funding awards in totality and find which results in the better bang for Monroe County's buck. Some of those awards at MCH can be used to offset lost revenue, and from my perspective, that's of critical importance to MCH. In those cases, we will look to use some of the other grants, including our CARES Act funding, to offset legitimate expenses.
Understood, and thank you. Through you, Mr. President, in a January 25th, I believe it was, written communication, it was indicated that there was $700,000 left in the March 2020 CARES Act funding. I think it was March 8th, but around that date, there was another communication. And oh, by the way, on the January 25th communication, it also noted that there were some adjustments going to be made to that balance. In a March 5th communication, March 1st to March 5th, it was shown that the CARES Act now had over $41 million of available funding. Can you explain how we got from 700,000 toward the end of January to 41 million plus by March 5th?
Yes, Mr. President. The overwhelming answer to that question is the undoing of CARES Act claims for salary expense due to administrative ease. That was probably worth $40 million and change right there across a variety of funds in the county. I think this honorable body will recall that the original CARES Act award came with the requirement that all funds be spent by December 30th of 2020.
They changed
and
it.
to avoid leaving money on the table, claiming salaries from administrative ease was a prudent measure to fully claim our award. Back on December 28th, however,
they changed it.
New guidance was released from the United States Treasury based on federal law that allowed the CARES Act funding to be spent through December 31st of 2021. Given that we had in a whole additional year to spend this award, we made the decision to unwind quite a number of our salary claim for administrative ease.
And through you, Mr. President, I've read a lot of the rules and things associated with this that came out from the Department of Treasury. I haven't seen anything that allowed you to reverse a transaction. I think, as you just described, Mr. Franklin, I'm assuming there was something in there that did allow that.
Mr. President, through our reporting through the Grant Solutions portal established by the U.S. Treasury, each quarterly claim, we have the opportunity to correct errors in a prior quarter, errors and omissions. One opportunity to correct is to unwind a claim. There is no requirement, Mr. President, that once an expense is claimed for reimbursement, that we cannot return those CARES Act dollars to the available pot.
Understood. Thank you, Mr. Franklin. The a concern I had is that the January 25th correspondence indicated that it was an adjustment, which if you read the definition is a minor change. And I guess I don't consider 40 million of 129 a minor change. Just ask for better clarification next time if that type of thing was being considered. And I yield the floor.
Good. Any further discussion? None, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Next.
Item number 33, referral 21-0120, classification of action, determination of significance pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act for the sale of county-owned tax foreclosure property located at 3 Wedgwood Court in the town of Clarkson.
Move it, Mr. President.
Moved by Legislator Dondorfer, seconded by Legislator Wilt. Is there any discussion?
Legislator Barra?
Legislator Barra.
I'll defer. I've been chatting.
Well, Legislator Boyce, I just had a question with regards to this. Was this the structure already on the property, or is this just had been approved through the president?
Through you, Mr. President, I believe we have Chan Kwa and Anna Liss available to answer this.
Thank you.
So I apologize. This is Director Anna Liss. Through you, Mr. President. I didn't hit *6 on our phone here to unmute myself. I'm here with Chan Kwa, our Community Development Manager. The answer to your question is no, there was no structure on that parcel prior to this project.
Okay, thank you. And can you just, there was just a minor correction in the referral itself. I think it said, the wording was a little bit off, and it thinks, like I said, it should have said "for" instead of or something like that with regards to the structure or sale of. If they could make that correction, that would be great.
Are you referring to, apologies, through you, Mr. President, we will take a look at what was disseminated to the legislature and make any necessary corrections.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you.
Legislator Barra?
Legislator Barra.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you to the administration, and this actually refers to both 120 and 121. Why are these considered? Why are these taken out of a normal cycle? A matter of importance in this case.
Through you, Mr. President, the answer to that question is that we have an offer. We recently received an offer on the property, and we need to initiate a contract.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Any further discussion?
Legislator Hebert.
Seeing none. Legislator Hebert.
Sorry, Mr. President, for being slow, and thank you.
All right.
Just a quick question. When you go to the Monroe County tax portal, the assessed value of this property is just over $3,000. Obviously, if you got an offer for 175, somebody's not updating the assessments, and that's certainly the town, I'm sure. But have we communicated to the town, since we have an interest in having them properly assessed, to ensure we collect the county taxes as well?
Through you, Mr. President, the reason the assessed value is lower than the sale price is because it was previously a vacant lot. And so the assessor at the municipal level will likely update the assessment at the town's discretion.
Through you, Mr. President, we do have an interest in this, since the county also collects property tax on it. Do we not communicate with them to encourage them to do so?
Through you, Mr. President, at the time of closing, yes, we will convey this information about the sale to the town.
Thank you. I yield the floor.
Thank you.
Excuse me. I'd like to respond to Legislator Hebert's question. The 2021 assessment roll does reflect the house being there already, which hasn't been finalized as of, it won't be final until July 1st of 2021.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Item carries. Next.
Item number 34, referral 21-0121, authorize the sale of county-owned tax foreclosure property located at 3 Wedgewood Court in the town of Clarkson.
Move it, Mr. President.
Moved by Legislator Delahanty, seconded by Legislator Hebert. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Item carries. Next.
Item number 35, referral 21-0122, authorize a contract with CHA Consulting, Inc. for evaluation, scope, schedule, and cost estimation services for the Frontier Field Major League Baseball Requirements Project.
Move it, Mr. President.
Second.
By Legislator Dondorfer, seconded by Legislator Delahanty. Is there any discussion?
Legislator
Seeing
Hebert.
none, all in favor? Oh, I'm sorry. Legislator Hebert, you're slow today. Go ahead.
I guess I am. Thank you, Mr. President. This is just a question on scope. We recently approved a $1 million CIP change to do what I thought is everything that is included in this contract for $73,000. Could somebody just tell me I'm wrong or explain the scope and what's left to be done?
Through you, Mr. President, this is Mike Garland from DES. Yes, you are correct. At the March 9th meeting, your honorable body approved a $1 million capital fund that is our estimated amount that we would expect for soft costs of a project that, again, in early stages, estimating to be around $12 million. That would allow us to advance to full design through bidding services. And we're not at that point, but we wanted that level of funding authorized so that a decision could be made. When the decision was made to advance design, we had that funding secured. What's before you tonight was really a result of the discussion that occurred on March 9th. As you recall, there was significant discussion relative to the scope and the schedule of the project, which at this point is somewhat amorphous. We have a list of requirements that Major League Baseball is requiring Frontier Field to meet to be able to, for the Red Wings to stay as a viable baseball team. And as you might recall, too, 120 minor league teams, minor league stadiums received these requirements back in December. So a lot of communities are developing a plan on how they can meet those. So what we, based on the discussion that we had back on March 9th, we decided to craft a scope of work that would provide a sufficient level of effort to give us a maximum level of information so that we had a better handle on what the cost could potentially be, how we would phase this over up through 2025. Again, what the schedule, cost, and scope would be. There may be items that we are compliant. There might be items that are not capital expenditures or more maintenance required. But until we get in there, we won't know that. And this level of scope is an initial amount that is specific around needs assessment and evaluation, developing a scope of work, the schedule, and a cost estimation, so that we can come back before you and ask for authorization to proceed with final design. And at that time, we'll have a much better sense of what the cost will be to be compliant.
Understood. Thank you. One last question. At the time of the March 9th legislature meeting, and I also sit on the county planning board where this was discussed, I was led to believe, at least my recollection is I was led to believe, and this is no knocker, no negative comment intended towards CHA Consulting, but it was going to require a highly specialized firm to be able to do this kind of work. Did I misunderstand? And when I looked up CHA Consulting, they looked to be a good consulting firm, but they didn't seem to have any specialization in stadiums or anything like that. Did I misunderstand something, or did it?
Through Mr. President, no, you didn't misunderstand anything. CHA Consulting, as you know, they have a local office here in Rochester, a lot of experience on county projects, as well as a substantial project at Frontier Field. They have retained a national MLB specialty consultant that specializes in minor league and major league stadiums based out of Overland Park, Kansas. It's Ballpark Associates. So they do have a specialized sub on their team. And, you know, they're retaining a local MBE, Ravi Engineering, as well. They have WBE on their team. But CHA Consulting, again, is a local, has a local office here, very familiar with county facilities, including Frontier Field.
Super. I'm so glad to hear that. And I want to commend the administration on finding a way to get some more detailed estimates than the very broad range of cost estimates, which were just, you stated tonight, Mr. Garland, under $12 million. And I think it was plus or minus windage on that was probably like 75%. So thanks for doing this for a relatively small fee. I yield the floor, Mr. President.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Are there any other matters to come before the Committee of the Whole? Hearing none, the Committee of the Whole stands adjourned and shall rise and report in the same matter as the Legislature Standing Committees. The March 23rd, 2021 special meeting of the Legislature is reconvened. There being no unfinished business, Legislator Brew.
Yes, Mr. President, this honorable body stands adjourned. The next meeting of the Monroe County Legislature is scheduled for Tuesday, April 13th, 2021 at 6 p.m.